Hey guys, and welcome to Let's Click Photography. Now, regular viewers of the channel will know that Canon UK have lent me the R6 body and a couple of RF lenses to try out their mirrorless system. As a DSLR user, mirrorless really does intrigue me as to whether or not it's a change that I want to make, and so having these bodies and some glass is really helpful to help me make that decision, and that is something that I want to be able to share with you as well. So during the course of these tests that I'm doing with these and these this loan period that I've got with the R6, the R5 and some of the glass, I will let you know how you can get your hands on some Canon bodies and lenses as well to try out for yourself if you're in the UK. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to know more about that. Today is all about the Canon R6. I've had it for a couple of days now. As with any new camera system, it's always going to take a little bit of getting used to, and as a DSLR user that is definitely the case, especially when it comes to the electronic viewfinder. Being used to an optical viewfinder as you would find in a DSLR system, looking through an electronic image through the viewfinder is just a little bit foreign to me. Now, I've played around with some of the tones and some of the hues, and there's a few settings that I'm sure if I had this long term I would find a way to make those settings and that EVF work a little bit better for me. But as it stands right now, with the basic options available to me, during the daytime it's just a little bit orange, and during the evening and at night time it becomes really blue. Now, one of the other things in and around that is the eye sensor, which is just here, and basically that flicks the screen on and off when you are putting your eye up to the viewfinder, and that is all well and good, works perfectly fine for that. However, I am just struggling to get used to reviewing my images, because as I zoom in it is very easy to cover that and to lose the light that's going into that, which turns off the screen, and all of a sudden your image disappears off the screen. It's not a big issue, it's just one of those things that will take a little bit of time to get used to. I have had one of these eye sensors on a camera before, but it was above the viewfinder, which made that just a little bit easier, but because it's right next to the screen right here, it does cause some issues when you are reviewing that image. That said, I think that's more to do with me than to do with poor design. And while we talk about the screen, something else that is taking a little bit of getting used to is the focusing system when you are using the electronic viewfinder. Being from a 5D Mark IV and a 6D Mark II, I'm used to either using a joystick or the rotary button to make changes to my focal points. However, on here it's done via the screen, and it's brilliant. It works really well. It is just one of those things that will take a little bit of time to getting used to. In terms of the body itself and build, it feels well built. I would say that something that is a little odd, it does feel a little bit plasticky around the grip area, and with that, because it's lacking in texture somewhat, certainly when compared to both the 6D2 and the 5D4, this feels really smooth and almost slidey, whereas with both of the DSLRs there's a little bit more texture, there's a little bit more grip. It's not going to drop out your hand, it's not going to slide off, but it will be interesting if this was to get wet, whether that stays as grippy, because it just doesn't feel like it would. And if you are a regular Canon user, you'll have been used to flicking between stills mode and video mode with a really easy, handy little switch that was always just right here. You can flick between two modes very simply. On the R6, it's actually on the dial at the top, and from manual mode it is right around the other side of the dial. Now, it's not a huge issue, but it does seem like one of those silly design changes that appear to have been made for no real reason. Even if they'd put a switch here, it could have worked just as well. One of the other things that strikes me as a little bit odd and unnecessary was putting the option for 120 frames per second and making that only available via the main menu rather than via the quick access menu, as all of the other shooting modes are available on. it wouldn't be a huge problem. If I own this camera, I would just set up my custom menus as I always would anyway, and that would be in there. So it would just be a button press and a button press. But as it stands right now with the default settings, you need to go in and search for that. And again, if you just try to flick over to movie mode really quickly and capture something happening, it's just another step to take before you are enabled to get to the function that you want to get to. One of the things about this that I do really instantly love is this extra dial that's just on here. This was set up out of the box to control ISO, and that works perfectly for me. Rather than hunting around on the top of DSLRs to get to that ISO button and then change it, that is just there, and that for me works really, really well. Having the three functions that I use the most accessible via dials just on the camera body, exactly in the right place for my thumb and my finger to get to, is a real big step in the right direction in terms of the design layout of these bodies. The focus system works really well and is super fast. And another thing that is super fast is the shooting speed of this camera. The frames per second on this is immense. It would be very, very easy to fill up memory cards quite quickly. The camera does feel good in hand, feels fairly well balanced, even with this 7200 on. So shooting handheld isn't too much of an issue. And in terms of size and weight, it certainly feels more akin to my 6D Mark II than it does to the 5D Mark IV. There could be a little bit more room, especially with a lens like this on it. And you can see there isn't that much room to get in between, and you can catch your fingers on it. But outside of that, it feels pretty good. It handles really well. And in terms of what is perhaps the most important part of any camera, the image quality, I'm gonna hold my judgment on that just yet. First impressions would be that it is a very capable camera. Today is my first real shoot out, and I'm sure for some of you eagle-eyed viewers, you will notice where I am. I'm at the wonderful, absolutely spectacular Mamtor in the Peak District National Park. And if there's ever a place to come and test out a new camera body in a landscape environment, this is certainly it. So I'm going to show you a couple of images that I've got from this morning, and you can make up your own minds on that image quality.